Today I'm at Walter's Gardens and we're going to do just a quick walk through the garden to see what's blooming. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings and this is a Zone 6A garden here in West Michigan, and things are just starting to kind of wake up a little bit, but I know if I don't get here early, there's going to be a lot of those beautiful early blooming perennials that we're going to miss. So we're going to walk through the gardens and just take a stop here and there whenever we see some color or things that I think that might be of interest to you. So let's go ahead and take a walk through the garden. The first plant that I come across that has some real interest is the kitty cat. This is a friendly cat that hangs out here in the garden and will probably be following us throughout the videos. But the plant actually that the cat is standing by, this is the Amsonia storm cloud. And the thing I like about Amsonia storm cloud is when the foliage emerges, it has really dark black stems. And you can see here how it's got some periwinkle buds tucked down in there. So we'll keep watching this plant over the next few weeks as it starts to actually flower. But even before it's to its flowering point, it's got a lot of interest, not only in the foliage stems, which are nice and dark, but then here too with these flower buds that are just waiting to erupt with color. So Amsonia storm cloud, as I mentioned, we are in a Zone 6A garden. So all of the plants that we'll be talking about here today are hardy down to at least a Zone 6A, although a lot of these plants are also Zone 5 and maybe even a little bit of 4s. And then top end, a lot of them are top out at about a Zone 8, some of them Zone 9. So to get the most information on the plants that we'll be talking about in the garden today, you'll want to head to our website, gardencrossings.com, and that's where you'll be able to find out the heights, the hardiness zones, if it's deer resistant, just all the information. And if I specifically talk about a plant, we'll put the name up on the screen. That way you can stop the video, take a screenshot to know just exactly how to spell the plants that we are talking about as we go walk through the gardens. I do want to apologize. I'm hoping we're not getting a lot of wind noise. You can see how it's very windy out in the gardens today. So hopefully that's not going to be too distracting from the actual thing that we're doing, and that's showing you beautiful plants. The next plant we come across that's got some really pretty spring color, this is the Euphorbia bonfire. And actually these plants are pretty tight right now. They do get a little bit taller, usually around 16 inches tall or so. But look at this new growth that's coming out, those beautiful yellow flowers with that nice deep burgundy contrast there of the foliage. Just a nice pop of color to the early spring gardens. We're going to just do a quick pan of the gardens as well to just kind of let you see their current state. You can see there's various little pops of color here and there, but there really is not a whole lot of height in the lines of the foliage yet. It's a pretty flat garden. We do come here throughout the summer, so we will probably at least once a month, be giving you updates of the current state in these gardens so that you can see month to month how things are growing and how color is changing. As we're walking along, here's even a better specimen of the Amsonia storm cloud. And I think if we look here, you can really see the deep dark stems there, the nice kind of olivey dark green foliage. And just look at this. This plant is probably 24 inches wide, and just look at all these flowers that are going to be blooming here at some point. It's going to be a beautiful mass of color once it comes into full bloom. Here's a good example of why foliage plays such an important part in the garden. These here are irises. It's the Iris Argentina variegata, and this has beautiful bicolor foliage. Eventually it'll be sending up purple flowers that smell like grapes. They're just so yummy smelling. But before those flowers even emerge, you can see how this foliage is really kind of breaking up the garden a little bit and adding an additional pop of color through the foliage form. Iberis is a great ground cover, as you can see here in the garden, and this was probably maybe 5 plants to start, and it's kind of a nice spreading ground cover, very low growing, maybe only about 8 inches tall or so. And the nice thing with the Iberis is if you're looking for kind of that matte of color, it really does a great job. Also, it's nice for weed control because, as you can see, it really is a nice massive mat. And I'm seeing some of those early pollinators kind of buzzing about. There's some little teeny tiny native bees and then some, God, I don't even know if they're bumblebees because I feel like it's a little early yet in the season for that. But I am noticing a lot of pollinators on this plant, and it's important that you do have things in your garden for those early season pollinators and also those early season butterflies. Something we notice in the garden center too is our garden center cats really like to go by the grass. Cats sometimes will eat at the grass. I think it kind of helps calm their stomach. So it's nothing to be worried about if you do see your cat in your garden and they are munching on your grasses a little bit. Although this garden is primarily a perennial trial garden, they've done a great job of adding structure and height into this garden by using various different types of shrubs. We've got some evergreens kind of out back yonder, but here, the one I'm standing next to, this here is actually an elderberry, also known as a sambucus, and this is the laced up variety. So I'm about 5'9", and you can see how tall it is. It's probably about 8 foot tall or so. The thing is this is a very fun and whimsy elderberry. You can see how the stems are long and skinny and not a lot of branching. And obviously the leaves are just starting to emerge here off the plant. But doesn't that look so fun with these little tufts of kind of that burgundy black coloration? So if you're looking to add a little character, a little whimsiness into the garden, the elderberry laced up is a great option. Definitely gives some nice structure as well. Giving you a little forward thinking of this specific spot here in the garden, one thing that you're noticing is there's a lot of black foliage going on, from the elderberry laced up to the mounds of sedum that are really starting to emerge, the penstemon. What else am I seeing in here? Just lots of dark foliage. So as we continue to tour these gardens throughout the summer, we'll notice how when they planted them up, they kind of did so in color blocking ways. There's a garden that's got a lot of purples and blues and oranges, another one that's got more pinks and purples. So that's something to look forward to in the garden tours coming up this summer, is just looking to see the use of color with the various plants that they have here. But this is just kind of a fun space that I could show you right now with the plants and the foliage color, that there's a lot of use of black, and that's really going to be something to look forward to this summer, to see the pokes of color that they are putting with these black foliage plants. Brunnera is a great color for in shade gardens for in the early season. These varieties here that we're seeing are the Brunnera Sterling Silver. This is a variety that we carried way back when. Now we have varieties like Jack of Diamonds, Queen of Hearts, and Jack Frost, which is kind of the one original, I think, of the Brunneras. Very dainty periwinkle blue flowers, beautiful bicolored foliage. Most of the Brunnera have a green leaf with a silver overlay, just various different leaf sizes and colors. This Sterling Silver has fairly small leaves, where the Jack of Diamonds and the Queen of Hearts have much larger leaves on those plant varieties, but just a nice splash of color in shady gardens. This area of the garden is shaded here by this giant shrub, and you're seeing lots of color in the form of Lenten rose or hellebore. So hellebore have been blooming here in Michigan for probably a good 4, maybe even 6 weeks. So the flowers that we're currently seeing on these plants are more the spent or finished blooms. But even though they are the finished blooms, they still are adding a lot of color here in the garden. Another variety that's blooming is the Virginia or Pig Squeak. This is the peppermint patty variety, and right now there's not a lot of foliage going on, just primarily the flower color. But what I can tell you about peppermint patty is this is a very large Virginia, and the leaves get big and the whole plant gets really big. So we'll continue to watch those through the summer as they continue to put on more more foliage growth. But right now they've got the beautiful white flowers, just a little bit of hint of pink in them, and it's really looking pretty, kind of poked in amongst all of these Lenten roses. Talking again about foliage interest, check out that hosta. That is Hosta Fire Island. So I've talked in other videos about how important I think it is to add those chartreuse or yellow foliage plants into the garden just to create that impact and wow. And this is a prime example of an excellent hosta that is doing just that. Standing from a distance, this yellow really adds a nice pop of color into a shady area. So right now we are under a tree It looks like it's a maple tree perhaps, and not a lot of canopy yet of leaf color. So as the season goes on, this is going to become a more shadier area in this garden. But for right now, as the garden's starting to wake up, that is really a nice bright splash of color. Polemonium Heaven Scent is a great part shade to full sun plant. Beautiful periwinkle blooms. We'll go in and take a closer look here. Just kind of dancing in the breeze today. And the scent, the name is Heaven Scent, and the name really implies what those flowers are doing. They're very fragrant flowers. Beautiful kind of olive foliage, a little hint of burgundy in it. So it's nice to add that extra different foliage color into the garden. And too, with these Jacob's Ladder or Polemonium, they have nice texture in the foliage as well. So it really kind of breaks up your typical leafy looking flowers with this more dainty kind of a palm branch, although on a very small scale looking foliage. And I'm just standing here and I can smell these beautiful flowers right now in the garden. Creeping phlox are a very vibrant splash of color in the spring garden. And as you can see here, this has been created into kind of more of a rock or wall type garden. And there's a lot of different creeping phlox planted in here for various pokes of color. There's magenta, there's pink, there's orchid, lavender, even some deep purple colorations. So you can create a real array of color in your rock gardens or tucked into like walls if you've got little spaces and walls. These creeping phlox are really doing a nice job of creating that very eye-catching color in the garden. This one right in front of me, I'm loving how it's kind of trailing over the block. That's giving it a really neat look here. Creeping phlox, as the name implies, does continue to get bigger and bigger as the years go on. All of these plants here, they were started probably out of like a 4.5 inch or 1 quart size container. And that's probably been about 3, maybe 4 years ago. And right now, most of them are about an 18-inch spread. So not overly crazy as far as the creeping goes. It's not going to just take off in your garden, but it's going to do a nice slow creep over the years. This was quite a surprise in the garden. This is the Chartreuse on the Loose Nepeta, or catnip. I'm actually very shocked that it's already blooming. This seems to be a little bit early for this plant. Chartreuse on the Loose has beautiful chartreuse green foliage. So you can see how this foliage kind of really pops in the garden because it's not that deep dark green of most plants that are not blooming, but sending up foliage right now. Beautiful soft purple blooms. Chartreuse on the Loose, the name kind of implies the habit of it. It's a little bit more of a spreading type nepeta. And you can see here in the garden, I mean, this is several plants that are planted, but it's got more of a spreading type habit. It'll be probably about 18 or so inches tall once it's mature. And with all nepeta, if you feel like it stops blooming or maybe you're not loving the habit of it at some point in the summer, go ahead and give it a light trim and it'll flush back out and be blooming again in no time. But this has got that great foliage and flower, kind of a twofer there. You're getting the foliage interest and the flower interest. Like I said, this is blooming pretty early and it's looking really great. More beautiful Bernera blooming here. This is actually the Queen of Hearts variety I was talking about earlier. And you can see that's got a very nice habit, about 18 to 20 or so inches tall here in the garden right now. And nice mounding habit. Beautiful small periwinkle forget-me-not blooms. Loving the foliage, that nice silver overlay. And as this plant continues to grow throughout the summer, the leaves will continue to get larger and larger. But I don't know about you, but anytime you can see a beautiful blue, it's really hard to find blue in the flower world. A lot of times blue is referred to as a purple plant, but this Bernera Queen of Hearts has definitely beautiful blue flowers on it. To give you a quick comparison, this little border here is the Bernera Jack of Diamonds. Again, very beautiful periwinkle blue blooms. I feel like the Queen of Hearts has a little bit more of that silver overlay than what Jack of Diamonds has. But really, you can't go wrong with either one because both of them are going to give you just fantastic color, nice habit, and nice performance in a shade garden. Pulmonaria Pretty in Pink is another great shade plant for early spring gardens. We'll go in and take a closer look here. You can see the beautiful pink and periwinkle blue blooms. That is one nice thing with the Pulmonaria is you do often get kind of two flower colors on one plant. Depending on the age of the flower, Depends on the color it currently is. Another great variegated foliage, nice deep green with silver speckles on it. A great deer-proof addition to shade gardens. Here's another nice collection of hellebore or Lenten rose. These are the dark and handsome variety, which are a near black flower, double blooms, and really add a lot of nice color and texture. The thing I like about the Lenten rose is there are so many different varieties available that you can kind of mix and match and create a whole collection in your garden if you're somebody that likes to do more of a collector's type series, or you can plant en masse for just beauty in one color. So check out the hellebores that we carry. We have a lot of different varieties, and these again are one of the first things that really show color in the spring garden here in Michigan, and they would be the same for you too, depending on where you live. Thank you for walking through the garden with me today here at Walter's Gardens, the home of proven winter perennials. In addition to all the beautiful proven winter perennials, they also have a large selection of non-branded perennials. So Walter's Gardens is a wholesale nursery, and this is where we get most of our perennials from. So if there's anything you're interested in or that we've talked about today, you can head to our website, gardencrossings.com, and look for many of these beautiful plants. If you're new to our channel, we welcome you to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.